What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from Mtg on the YouTube.com. Down there, we like magic, you know, by now. And today, I'm going to give you what is, according to the comments section at least, the most requested deck of the season for some reason. I'm going to give you a 4-color Hapatra. Yeah, everybody's been asking for Jund Hapatra, but there's actually another card I want to play, and it's white. So we'll call it 4-color Hapatra. And an added bonus here, I'm going to give you something else that I've been getting a lot of requests for in comment sections lately, and that is rotation-proof decks. This deck is 100% rotation-proof. Nothing from Battle, or Oath, or Shadows, or Eldritch Moon. Everything's from Kaladesh on, so that if you buy this deck today, you can keep it for like 2 years. So let's take a look at it. Before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and let you know this video is brought to you in part by TCGplayer.com. They have far and away the best singles prices on the entire interwebs. And if you're interested, you can buy this entire deck from their website for only about $75. And again, it'll last you 2 years. So if you're interested in doing that, just click the first link in the description and you can view the deck list that way too. But without further ado, let's go ahead and check it out. The deck won't make a whole lot of sense unless you know what Hapatra Vizier of Poisons does, which we're going to play a whole playset of here. And you've probably already seen this lady around. We did a deck tech on her a few months ago. If you haven't seen that, feel free to check that out. But it probably is worth revisiting Hapatra at this point because she got 20 new cards, actually a little more than 20 new cards from Hour of Devastation. So she's fully powered at this point. She's ready to do some serious work. She got some awesome help from HOD. And we are going to play a whole playset of her here. I know she's legendary, but first of all, she's really easy to kill. Like most of the removal in the format will kill a Hapatra. So an extra copy won't just be dead in your hand for too long. You'll probably be able to play it because she has a huge target on her back and she's not too hard to dispose of. So there's that. More importantly though, there's the fact that we want to have her every game on turn 2 as often as possible. You know, playing a turn 2 Hapatra will not only ensure that she gets through the most often, you've definitely got the best percentage chance of getting her through and getting the snake if you play her early. But there's also the fact that if you play a turn 2 Hapatra, you set yourself up to do some really nasty stuff on turn 3. She's a fine top deck a lot of the time, but we'd really rather have her early, so I want to give us the best chance of drawing her as possible. If we're going to play Hapatra in this format, I think that 2 things are key to our success. First of all, we have to have creatures that can put -1/-1 counters on themselves, just in case our opponent's not playing any creatures, you know, like Blue-Red Control and Grixis Control. These are popular strategies right now, and they don't really play, especially Game 1, they don't play much more than Torrential Gearhulk, sometimes Linvala, we all saw that list. But they don't really play a whole lot of creatures. So we want to be able to get the most bang for our buck out of Hapatra, but if they're not playing a bunch of creatures, we can't do that. So we have to have creatures that put -1/-1 counters on themselves to make sure we get value. The other key here is to have cards that if we're going to put -1/-1 counters on our opponent's creatures, definitely want some of those. We want to be able to put as many counters on our opponent's creatures at the same time as possible. You know, we want things that put more than one -1/-1 counter on more than one creature. We'll prioritize those because if you can put more than one -1/-1 counter on multiple creatures at the same time, Hapatra will trigger for each creature. So if we play like Grind, for instance, and put 2 -1/-1 counters on 2 different guys, we get 2 snakes. So we want to prioritize that interaction as much as possible too. So with that in mind, let's look at all of our non-Hapatra creatures first here, all of which deal in -1/-1 counters in some form or fashion. Whether they're putting them on themselves or they're putting them on our opponent's creatures, every single one of our creatures has the text -1/-1 counter on it somewhere. So let's take a look at all of these real quick, starting with the 4 of Chandler Initiate. Now, you heard me say earlier that we're a 4-color deck, so we've got to play Chandler Initiate. You know, I'd probably play Chandler regardless of how many colors we're playing because it deals with -1/-1 counters, and it helps us get to like 4 and 5 drop stuff a turn faster, which is pretty important. If you're trying to get to like a Scorpion God, Chandler can help you play it on turn 4, which is always pretty sweet. But the main reason that Chandler's here is because we're trying to make a bunch of different mana. And yeah, we're only playing, just for your information, we're only playing 1 main deck red card and 1 main deck white card. We're mostly a Golgari deck, a green-black deck. But we also need those colors when we need those colors, so Chandler helps out a lot. On to the 3 drops though, we're going to play 4 copies of Ommited Eternal to start the 3 drops off. This thing is actually really impressive. I was all set to not really like this card, but this is the deck, man. This is the deck for this card. This thing is incredible. First of all, 3-mana 5/5. Let's get that out of the way. 3-mana 5/5 is really good. That's a big dude right there. And yeah, Biggest complaint is it dies to our opponent playing Magic. Like that's the joke with this card. But if we have a Hapatra in play, really mitigates some of that. You know, if we have a Hapatra in play and an Ommited Eternal, every time they cast a spell, we get a snake. That'll make them think twice a lot of the time about what they're casting. We also have a way in this deck of getting not only Hapatra, but Ommited Eternal through unblocked like every turn if we want to. So even if our opponent plays like 4 spells, it doesn't matter. We can get him through unblocked and take all those counters off of him. Pretty sweet. More 3-drops, there's a few of them. We're going to play 4 copies of Obelisk Spider in this deck, and that was like the 5th take I've done. It's really hard to say Obelisk Spider, but anyway, we're going to play 4 copies of Spider because heck yeah, we're going to play 4 copies of Spider. This card is awesome. Now, like a couple of creatures in this deck, this card is a little bit off curve. 3 mana for a 1/4 is not the best deal in the world, but it technically does extra damage sometimes. That's pretty cool. And, you know, since we have Hapatra in this deck, and pretty much every creature works with Hapatra, you know, then that sort of mitigates how off curve this is, because it will create extra power as the game goes on. Most of our creatures do. So you'll note that a couple of our creatures look a little bit below where we normally want to be on the curve, but again, having Hapatra helps mitigate that somewhat. But the main attraction here is the fact that this thing will drain for days. You get multiple spiders in play and it can just become game over. Like, this provides a bunch of reach for us. We actually have some decent mid-range options already. You know, Ommited Eternal can do a bunch of damage in just a couple of turns. So having something that, you know, you get 3 to 5 or 6 drains off of over the course of the game can really help close things out and keep you in the game. Last 3-drop, I promise. We're going to play 4 copies of Banewhip Punisher in this deck. Another card that I was all set to be like, meh, but it's, again, been really impressive for what it is, you know. There's so many 3-drops in this deck that this will sometimes function as our 4-drop. We'll just drop it, put a -1/-1 counter on a guy, and then either immediately kill that guy or kill something entirely different that we've already put a counter on. That happens a lot. Now, the best thing about the card, though, in total, is its versatility. It can be a 2/2 guy. It can kill a small dude. It can whittle down a big guy. It can kill outright a creature. It can block and then kill a dude. Like, there's just so much versatility in this because you get a removal spell on a 2/2 body. That's always great. Sometimes it can even be 2 removal spells on 1 body. Just the card is very, very impressive in this deck and probably this deck alone. But don't sell it short. I've actually really liked Banewhip a lot, and you get to play with a card called Banewhip Punisher. That's a great name. Into the big guys, though, we're going to play 2 copies of Archfiend of Ifnir in this deck, for one reason, just to have a big 5-power flyer. Sometimes we want that. You know, it's a huge threat against some decks, and that's nice. So at least there's that. But the more important thing here is that there are 10 different ways of cycling or discarding cards in this deck. And if you have a Hapatra out and they've got a relatively big board, well, then suddenly you can just fill your board with snakes. Like, if you're playing against Blue-White Monument, Archfiend of Ifnir is ridiculous if you just, like, cycle a land and you have a Hapatra out. You don't even have to have a Hapatra out, honestly. Just Archfiend of Ifnir is great against Monument because it kills all their tokens if they don't have, like, a Gideon emblem or something. So that's good in and of itself. Monument's one of the best decks in the format, and as a matter of fact, we have incredible game against Monument. It's one of the easier of the top decks for us to beat. But that's a pretty good trick against it right there. But if you have a Hapatra out, then you're just getting all the snakes in the world if you cycle like 1 land against a decent board and you have an Archfiend out. We're actually going to make room for another 5-drop because we have to. We're going to play 2 copies of the Scorpion God in this deck because, again, why would we not do that? This is the only red card in the main deck, but I feel like it's very much worth playing. We're going to be drawing a bunch of cards with the Scorpion God, even if we never actually activate his onboard ability, but we will be doing that an awful lot too. You know, just this is a card drawing engine that comes back over and over, works really well with Hapatra, you know, works really well with a lot of the stuff in the deck. This is a never-ending engine for Obelisk Spider. You know, as long as they have creatures we can put -1/-1 counters on, then we'll get drains out of Spider. That's an easy way to end the game too, much less the fact that you have a huge guy in play now. Just before I finish up, I have to list off all the amazing things about the Scorpion God one more time. Draws us cards, never-ending -1/-1 counter engine, works with Hapatra, works with Obelisk Spider, you know, keeps coming back over and over, like a never-ending card draw engine that keeps coming back and can remove our opponent's creatures. Like, how is this not the most played with God? So those were the 24 creatures in the deck. Now let's take a look at the spells, most of which are removal, starting with the 4 copies of Grind to Dust. This is the only white card in the deck, and it's only on half of a card, so that should count for something. Anyway, we're going to play 4 of these because, yes, first of all, you never have to actually cast Dust in order to make grind worth playing. It's just 2 mana for a distributed 2 counters. That's awesome with Hapatra because you get 2 snakes, but it's fine even without Hapatra. You know, it's really good with Obelisk Spider too. Decent with Banewhip Punisher because not only will Punisher put a counter on a creature, but you get to distribute 2 more counters with this, and now Punisher can kill like anything on the other side of the board really easily. Also, the grind half of this is another thing that's really, really good against a Catcher's Monument. You know, just a couple of mana investment, blow away 2 of their guys, and they don't even have to be tokens. Sometimes it's a Militia Captain or something, you know, so, or Selfless Spirit, that's really important too. So just grind by itself is worth playing in this deck, but it's attached to Dust, and I definitely want to be able to make some white mana outside of just Chandler Initiate, because obviously Dust is a bomb in this deck. Dust is yet another card that's worded exactly right for this deck. We can exile any number of creatures with -1/-1 counters, meaning that we don't have to exile our own guys. That's really, really important because most of our guys put -1/-1 counters on themselves. But instead, we can just like use Banewhip Punisher or grind itself, obviously, or any of our other cards, you know, to put -1/-1 counters on our opponent's guys and then just blow away 3 or 4 guys, and that is no joke. Sometimes grind can seriously be a 3 or 4 for 1 and a, you know, one-sided board wipe. Like the times where Dust is great are just like unbelievable. Like it just can win the game for you outright. I'm also going to play 3 copies of Splintered Agony in the deck. I really like the instant speed on this. That's one of the best reasons to play it, but it's just yet another thing that puts counters on our opponent's creatures. We've got an awful lot of stuff in this deck that puts counters on our own guys, but I want to also have as many things as possible that put counters on their guys. But that said, I don't think it's worth a 4 of or anything. It's definitely not necessarily an amazing card, but this deck makes it a lot better to play Splintered Agony, especially if you have a Hapatra out. You know, on curve, that's not bad at all. Hapatra into Splintered Agony, kill 2 of their guys or weaken 2 of their guys, kill 1, weaken the other, get a couple of snakes. Splintered Agony is an all-star in that situation. And by the way, before I finish up on Agony, it's not the worst top deck in the world, given what you've got on the board. If you've got a Hapatra, or an Obelisk Spider, or a Scorpion God, then sometimes you can get some snakes, or you can get some drains, or you can draw a card, because you top deck that Splendid Agony. So it's actually not the worst card ever on turn 7. And to finish off the deck, the only thing in the entire deck that doesn't have the text -1/-1 counter somewhere on the card, we're going to play 4 copies of Key to the City. A Key to the City is one of the keys to this deck, and I know that everyone's used that pun at this point, but still, it is a key to this deck. You know, this can help us get Hapatra through unblocked, thus getting more counters and more snakes. This helps us get Eternal through unblocked, meaning that we can just dump all the counters off of him and get 5 damage through a lot of the time. That's pretty sweet. We can also get 5 damage through really easily with Archfiend of Ifnir, and this helps us discard cards for Archfiend of Ifnir so that we can just like blanket their board with -1/-1 counters. Just this gets through the Scorpion God unblocked. Just really, really good card here, you guys, and we can get card advantage off of it too. So yeah, we should definitely play this. Not only is it so good with Hapatra and Eternal that it's worth playing, but we've also got Archfiend and other big dudes that we want to get through. So just a very, very important card. It looks slightly out of place, but you gotta play it. There's 25 lands in this deck, and I'm actually going to give you a graphic because that's an awful lot of different lands. But we've got to play some amount of Ifnir Deadlands while still leaving room for Swamp because we're playing Evolving Wilds. So I at least want 1 Swamp in there that Wilds can go get. But we've also got to play Ifnir Deadlands because it's on theme, but it's also a really good land. This thing is fantastic. Blooming Marsh is the most expensive thing in the mana base, other than maybe Concealed Courtyard. They're about the same. I think Blooming Marsh is a little bit more expensive, but it's important that we play these lands that have a pretty good chance of coming to play untapped if we get them early. You know, a lot of our lands, if you haven't noticed, come into play tapped. We get the sources we need. You know, if you count Evolving Wilds as a source, we've got 14 green, 14 black, 8 red, and 7 white, not counting the fact that Chandler Initiate is in the main deck to help us make all of our colors. But those are comfortable numbers for the spells that we're trying to hit, but a lot of them come into play tap. So having something like Blooming Marsh and Concealed Courtyard is very, very important. And of course, you'll note that we have the cycling lands in here, not only for Archfiend of Ifnir, but also for a little bit of flood protection. 25 lands is a fair amount of lands. We're mostly playing that many to make sure we hit the counts for the sources that we need. But if we're going to play all those lands, it'd be nice to have some to discard every now and again. And here's our sideboard right here. We're going to play Hapatra's Mark in there. You could also play Blossoming Defense, but I'm playing Hapatra's Mark in there against removal, especially considering that if they try to remove Omid Eternal, then we can not only give it hexproof, but we can also take all the counters off of it. That can be a pretty good swing and play. Right there, we're going to play Scarab Feast against not only like Delirium strategies, which still exist in this format until rotation, but there's also a lot of creatures that come back from the graveyard. You know, a lot of people playing Scrap Heap Scrounger again. There's all the zombies, you know, there's Resilient Kenra, there's Champion of Wits. A lot of these creatures come back from the graveyard, so Scarab Feast can get rid of them. And we can cycle it for Archfiend of Ifnir sometimes. That's pretty cool. Dissenter's Deliverance is in there, not only against Torrential Gearhulk, but also against Heart of Kirin, you know, blue-white Monument decks. We can kill their Monument. Just a really important card. And it too cycles for Archfiend if we needed to. Doomfall is in there mostly against control decks, so again, we can kill their Torrential Gearhulk. Usually be their only creature on the battlefield, and sometimes it can just get a troublesome spell out of their hand, or something that we don't, you know, if we don't want them to have counter spells, for instance. Doomfall will help with that too. This will also kill Bristling Hydras out of the sideboard, a card that we really don't like at all. We're going to play the Cast Out so that we have some sort of answer to Planeswalkers mostly, but this also cycles for Archfiend of Ifnir, and it can kill things that are bigger than all these, you know, -1/-1 counter shenanigans. That can be important too. And we're going to play the Nest of Scarabs. This can be decent against Blue-White Monument, but I'm still not sure that sighting it in against that deck is the right choice. But I have become convinced that sighting it in against Control can be the right choice. Very decent card if you can get it to resolve. And here are your power rankings right here. A final score of 62, not half bad for a $75 deck. Under $100 will get you a deck that can compete with competitive decks. Again, you come up against Blue-White Monument, you can laugh maniacally because we do pretty darn well against that deck for how good it's supposed to be. Same thing with Mono Red Aggro, or like Red Splash Black Aggro, that had a really good weekend, if you didn't notice, over this past weekend. And we do really well against that deck. So against all the little aggro decks in the format, we are a great mid-range choice. So you can try this out. We've got some pretty strong categories too. We're obviously really high in synergy, and our offense and defense are both above average, something that you often look for in a good mid-range deck. Bad matchups include Control and Zombies, or really anything with a bunch of resilient creatures. But we've got things like Scarab Feast after sideboards to sort of help out with that, you know, but we're not a huge fan of resilient creatures, and we're not a huge fan of board wipes and counter spells. So watch out for those, play accordingly, but we do really well against a lot of the aggro in the format, which is shaping up to be some of the more important decks right now. But that's all I've got for this one. Let me know how you felt about it down there in the comments. I know I'm going to get some stuff. First of all, we didn't play Noose Constrictor. Again, it's an Eldritch Moon. Can't play it. This is rotation proof, so just remember that. But we also didn't play stuff like Soulscar Mage because I really didn't want to have to make red mana on like turn 1. And a slew of burn spells really didn't work the way I wanted to. So Soulscar Mage just came out. I felt like we really take a lot of the stress off the mana base by only playing one red card and one white card in the main deck. So don't kill me for not playing Soulscar. I know a lot of you would. But as always, super important question, what are we doing next time? I'm going to leave it up to you all. Let me know in the comments what you'd rather see, either the red-black aggro deck that I just mentioned a second ago, and I've actually been ready to bring you that deck for like a week now. It almost beat Thermo Alchemist last time I asked you about it, but not quite. So I want to give that deck another shot. Red-black aggro, or something I haven't said anything about yet at all. Mono Green Stompy, a deck that I actually think has a lot of really good pieces right now. Sort of stoked about that. But what do you want to see more? Red-black aggro, Mono Green Stompy? Let me know down there. But I'm tapped out for now. That's all I've got for this one. If you're interested in looking at this deck list, or you even want to buy the deck list, that'd be cool. You can just click that first link in the description. That'll take you right over to TCG Player, and that helps out the channel just by clicking the link. That'd be really cool. Or, if you really want to, you could like the video if you enjoyed it. You could sub to the channel and hit the bell for notifications so you get these deck techs when I put them out. You can hop on over to Twitter at SBMTGDev. You can follow me there, or if you're really cool, you can go to patreon.com/SBMTG. But anyway, that's all I've got for now. Thanks for watching, my wizards.